Hi friends, I want you to get out your Little Red Riding Hood book and a red crayon because we're going to do the back page when we're all done listening to it. If you need to pause the video to go get that, go right ahead. I need you to get your book and a red crayon. Now this is your own Little Red Riding Hood book that you get to keep at home. So when you want to, you can look at it and remember the story and tell it like you're the author of the story. When we turn the pages, I want you to take the corner and turn it. On this one, there's a star in the corner. When that tells us to turn the page again, we're going to go to the corner and we're going to turn it. There's an apple in the corner of that picture. And the last time, we're going to go to the corner, turn the page, and there's a flower in the corner of this one. Your book should be flat on the table like this. Miss H is going to hold it up to help you know where you should be. But yours should be flat on the table and then looking like this. All right, I hope you're ready to listen to our story today of Little Red Riding Hood.
This is CD 1, Track 2, to be used with Little Red Riding Hood. If you have your storybook and a red crayon, you are ready to begin. Now listen to the story of Little Red Riding Hood while you look at the picture on the cover.
Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, there was a little girl who lived with her mother in a little house at the edge of the woods. The little girl was so helpful and kind that her grandmother, who lived on the other side of the woods, made her a pretty red cape with a bright red hood. The little girl wore her pretty red cape all the time, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother asked Little Red Riding Hood to take a basket of fruit to her grandmother. Little Red Riding Hood was happy to do this, and so she put on her pretty red cape with a bright red hood and set off. Her mother said goodbye from the door and then called out, "Be careful! Don't talk to any strangers you meet along the way." Little Red Riding Hood smiled and waved goodbye.
Now turn the page. Look at the page with the red star in the corner.
It was a pretty day. Little Red Riding Hood skipped happily along the path until she met the wolf.
"Well, hello, my dear," said the wolf. "Where are you going today?"
Little Red Riding Hood didn't want to have a long conversation, so she just said, "I'm going to my grandmother's house," and she hurried on her way. But that was all the wolf needed to hear. He took a shortcut through the woods and soon arrived at grandmother's house.
Now look at the picture of the wolf.
The wolf knocked politely, and grandmother called, "Who's there?"
"It's Little Red Riding Hood, Grandmother,"
said the wolf in a high voice.
"I've got a basket of fruit for you."
Grandmother opened the door and bang! The wolf jumped in. He said,
"I've got you now."
but just then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw Little Red Riding Hood coming along the path. So quickly, before grandmother could make a sound, the wolf locked her in the closet.
Now turn the page. Look at the page with the red apple in the corner.
The wolf put on grandmother's nightcap and got into bed. When Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the door, the wolf said,
"Who's there?"
Little Red Riding Hood said, "It's Little Red Riding Hood, grandmother. I've got a basket of fruit for you."
"Come in, my dear,"
said the wolf.
I'm sick in bed with a cold. That's why my voice sounds so gruff.
And so, Little Red Riding Hood went into the house.
Now, look at the next picture.
Little Red Riding Hood went over to the bed to give the fruit to her grandmother. "Why, grandmother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what big eyes you have."
All the better to see you with, my dear,
said the wolf. "And grandmother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what big ears you have."
all the better to hear you with, my dear,
said the wolf. "And oh, grandmother, what big teeth you have," said Little Red Riding Hood.
all the better to eat you up with,
shouted the wolf, and he jumped out of bed.
Now, turn the page. Look at the page with the red flower in the corner.
Oh, how the wolf roared! He started to chase Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood ran out of the house shouting, "Help! Help! Help!"
Now, look at the next picture.
But luckily, a woodcutter who was working nearby heard her shouting and ran to see what was the matter. When he saw the wolf chasing Little Red Riding Hood, the woodcutter ran after the wolf and tried to hit him with an axe. The wolf, who was really a terrible coward, ran off into the woods yelping with fear, and is probably still running. Little Red Riding Hood and the woodcutter went back to the house. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother thanked the woodcutter 1,000,000 times for scaring away the wolf. Then they all sat down and had some fruit. And of course, Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother lived happily ever after.
Now, turn the page and look at the back of your storybook. I'm going to ask you some questions. When you hear this sound, your teacher will pause the CD so you have time to mark your answer. Then your teacher will turn the CD back on. Now, pick up your red crayon. Look at the pictures next to the apple. Find the picture of Little Red Riding Hood. Color that picture red.
Which one is Little Red Riding Hood? Is this Little Red Riding Hood, this one, or this one? Which one are you going to color red? Get your red crayon and color Little Red Riding Hood red.
The picture of the little girl is Little Red Riding Hood. You should have colored the picture of the little girl red. Now, look at the pictures next to the crayon. Who was in the bed when Little Red Riding Hood got to her grandmother's house? Find the picture that shows who was in the bed when Little Red Riding Hood got to her grandmother's house. Color that picture red.
So friends, who was in the bed when Little Red came? Was it Grandma or was it the wolf? Which one are you going to color red? Grandma in bed or the wolf? Who was in bed when Little Red came into the house? The wolf was.
The wolf was in the bed when Little Red Riding Hood got to grandmother's house. You should have colored the picture of the wolf red. Now, look at the pictures next to the fire truck. Who helped Little Red Riding Hood by scaring away the wolf? Find the picture that shows who scared the wolf. Color that picture red.
Friends, who scared the wolf? A police officer? Grandma? Or the woodcutter? Who scared the wolf away? There was no policeman in our story. Grandmother? Nope. Was it the woodcutter? You should color the woodcutter red.
The woodcutter scared the wolf away. You should have colored the picture of the woodcutter red. Now look at the pictures next to the bucket of paint. One picture shows Little Red Riding Hood and Grandmother looking sad. The other picture shows them looking happy. At the end of the story, it said that Grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood lived happily ever after. Find the picture of Grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood that shows how they felt at the end of the story. Color that picture red.
So what picture does Grandmother and Little Red look happy in? Do they look happy there? I don't think so. Do they look happy here? Yep. So what picture are you going to color? This one of them looking happy.
Grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood were happy at the end of the story. So you should have colored the picture of Grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood looking happy.
Great job, friends. This is something, like I said, that you can keep at home and look at. You don't have to send this back to school for Miss H to see. I hope you enjoyed listening to it for one last time. Next week, we're going to start a new story called Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Great job, friends.